Hi, and welcome to my video on how to make chai. Now this is chai from India, and I think there's a lot of variations, and I'm just trying to give you a real way how to make chai. So it's authentic, and it has the best ingredients, and so you can also tailor it to yourself. Now, when you start out making chai, there are spices that you need to add. Now, probably the most important spice is cardamom. So I'm going to grab some cardamom pods. You need fresh cardamom pods. So here's a bag that I got at the Indian grocery store. And these are nice and green, which is what you're looking for, because the green ones will have the nice black seeds in them. And I haven't tried this brand yet, actually. Now this is very old. Notice it's not very green, and it's getting kind of yellow. So when you open up these, the cardamom will not look too good. You'll probably want about 4 cardamom pods in your chai for 2 cups. You could also go, 6 if you really want that cardamom flavor. So the way you open these up is that there's the bottom with a little stem, and then there's the top with a flat part. You actually want to open up the flat part. So I hold it like this, and I grab my nail, and I pull it apart. And that's all it takes. It's really easy to open them up. And if you look inside, this one actually, despite the fact that it was kind of gray, it looks pretty good. So here's my mortar and pestle. Now, you can just throw the seeds in your chai, but I find it's much better to pulverize them in the mortar and pestle. This will really give you a great cardamom flavor. Your cardamoms should not look like this. They should look closer to this, dark, and they should also smell. They shouldn't be so dried out that you can't smell them. So I'm not gonna put this husk in the mortar and pestle. I'm just gonna put the seeds. So here's another good one. So here I've got my seeds in there. Now I'm just going to take my mortar and pestle and grind them up into a nice fine powder. So it's probably worth buying your cardamom at the Indian grocery store, where it's going to be cheaper than if you buy it at the normal American grocery store. So let's see. Now that's the only one I really grind, and I also grind them because they're expensive, so it lasts. I think you get more flavor if you grind them. Now let's look at some of the other spices you'll put in. I like to put in pepper. I like to put in fresh ground pepper. It gives a little spiciness. I always put in cumin. Some people are very particular. They only put maybe 4 of these seeds in for a cup of chai. That's good for me. Now, if you really like black licorice, you can put in some aniseed. So this can be overpowering, but what I want with this is just a little bit to maybe add some flavor I can't taste. So I'll probably put in like 4 of these seeds into my chai. So you want to buy whole root ginger. You definitely want this stuff. I haven't used ginger powder before, and I'd probably cut off about that much. This, to me, it's kind of like the pepper. It gives a little spiciness. You don't want so much that you taste it, but you just want enough that it makes a complex flavor. An important part of chai is cloves. So here's another one where you don't really want to overdo it. I'll probably put in 4 cloves for my 2 cups. So let's go. And those are my cloves. And I'm just tossing all of these into my pan. Another important thing to add is cinnamon. So this, you could add cinnamon powder or this fresh cinnamon. I could probably even grind this in the mortar and pestle. I won't do that right now. It's kind of hard, but it smells great, and so I'll just hack off a little bit here and throw it in. So this is how much I'm going to throw in for my 2 cups. So that's just fresh cinnamon. And you could also use ground cinnamon. So at this point I've added my whole cinnamon. I've added probably about 6 cumin seeds. I've added about 2 to 3 of my, is it jeera? My aniseed seeds, the stuff that smells like black licorice. And I'm really careful of that. I know there's one Indian restaurant where that's kind of the predominant flavor, and I like it. So if you put a lot in, it'll taste like licorice, but I don't want to taste that. I just want a little bit. So I add a little bit of that. I then add some ground pepper. What I do is I just do fresh ground pepper, and I like about 4 twists. And that can add a really nice spiciness as it goes down the throat. Now I'm going to add my pulverized cardamom. And if you really want that cardamom flavor, just go nuts and put in 4 really fat cardamoms or 6. And you can just throw in the seeds by themselves, but you know, I just prefer to pulverize them. Now when you make chai, there's kind of like the standard chai is to use half water and half 2% milk. And if you want to live it up, you can use 2 cups of 2% milk. And if you use whole milk, then it's even richer. But what I'm going to do is just add my milk. So just 2 cups of whole milk. And it depends on how thick you want it. If this is really like a dessert thing, if you want something lighter, go ahead and just use half milk. Of course, we need to add some tea. And I think the easiest thing to do is just add tea bags. So I'm going to go get some tea bags and throw them in. So here's an example of some tea you'll see at the Indian grocery store that you won't see at your regular grocery store. And I'm just going to take 2 of these tea bags and throw them in. And I usually cut off or tear off the labels. So I got 2 of those in there. Now if you want it a bit stronger, I almost recommend throwing in a decaf tea bag along with this. Then you get like 3 tea bags worth of tea flavor with only a little bit of caffeine. Because you can get a little too wired when you put in 3. So what I've been doing lately is throwing in just another spoonful of loose tea. At this point, I'm just going to turn the range on to high. It's really important to keep an eye on it, because it will boil over. You know, if you just turn your back on it for a second, it'll boil over and make a mess. So you have to be really careful. And what I'll do is, once it gets pretty hot, sometimes I'll take off the heat and you know, I'll catch it just before it boils over, and then I'll take it off the heat, and I'll turn down the heat, and then I'll move it back on, and I'll let it steep maybe 3 minutes. So in my opinion, there's 2 really strong tastes I get out of chai. Sometimes people go with the aniseed, the black licorice taste, and some go with the cardamom taste. And I try to go a little more on the cardamom taste. And so your basic ingredients are, you'll always want to add, the essential ingredients are always, I think, cinnamon, pepper, cardamom, and cloves. Those seem to be the essential ones. Then you can add a little aniseed if you want. And the milk proportion is, of course, up to you. So let's heat this up. And don't leave yet, because now I have the secret tip that as Westerners you'll want to know. So stay tuned. While this is heating up, let me just show you something I used to do more. I would, if I had, let's say I was making 2 cups of chai, I would take 1 cup of the water and I would put it in the saucepan. Then I would boil the water. I would put in the tea and boil the water. That really let me steep the tea very quickly. Then I would throw in the milk and then heat it up again, and then it would be done. This kind of helps get rid of that the waiting period. With milk, when you heat it up and it gets hot enough to actually absorb the tea, then you're also at a risk of boiling over. So, and whenever you make tea, you always want to use the hottest water possible. No matter what tea you make. Green tea, you want to use that hot water. Now I'm just keeping my eye on it, and I'm going to stir it a little bit. And I will warn you, it's a little more messy when you use the loose leaf black tea, but you can do just as good with just tea bags. So I notice it's already getting this tan color, which is very good. Oh, I almost forgot, sugar. You'll want to put in some sugar too. But let me show you the technique. See how it's starting to boil up? Now this would cause a huge mess, so what I do is just pull it off the heat. And I usually go and turn down, or even turn off my burner. So my burner's off. My chai isn't boiling over, so that's really good. But it's got this nice boil to it. Got my 2 bags and everything. So I'm going to pull this off just for a little bit more, and I'm going to go run and get some sugar. Okay, it's time to put in some sugar, and usually I just do 2 spoonfuls, 2 heaping spoonfuls, 1 per cup. Now you can also use honey if you want, but I think you're not supposed to boil honey, so you could add that after you pour it into the cups. In India, you'll always get tea with sugar in it. If you go to an Indian restaurant, it's often you will get I would say maybe half the time you actually get chai without sugar in it, and then you just have to add it yourself. So let me stir this a bit more. So I think the color is pretty good. So we've got our cloves and all our seeds, and notice how it's really like soup. It's like making soup. It's been steaming. I think we've gone long enough. Okay, I think we're about done here. The next step is to pour the tea. Now I have a special technique. I don't have any cloth. Sometimes in India they'll pour it through cloth. I just have this tea steeper. So I'm going to put my strainer in the cup, and now I simply just pour the tea. And you'll see there's so many spices and everything. You really have to have that strainer, because you don't want that to go in the tea. It's just a bad experience. So let's see. Now I'm just going to pull it out, and I usually just rest it in here. Now we're not actually done yet. Now we've got this cup of chai, and let's see. And hopefully it's wonderful, and it has, it's got a decent color. There should be some kick to it. It's also steaming, so it's very hot. And often when you serve chai, it's so hot that you can't drink it immediately, or you sip it very slowly. And now pay attention. This is extremely important. So you'll serve this to people, and they'll let it sit for a minute. So we're going to let this sit for a minute, and we're going to see what happens. Now this is especially true in full milk tea, and I think it might be a little worse when you let it boil over or you let the milk get too hot. But you'll see this film appears on the top, and sometimes if you start sipping it, this film will get caught in your lips while you're drinking it, and it can be kind of painful, and you almost don't know really what to do with it. And we'll just let this chai sit for a little bit. So often when I serve chai, I will pour the chai, and if it sits for a little bit, or even like after a couple of minutes of people drinking, I'll take my my fork, and you'll see there's this hard part that's developed on top of the chai, and you can kind of see it moving around a little bit. And this can actually be kind of painful, because if it gets stuck on your lips, you'll pull the cup away, and then it'll stick to your face, and it's unfortunate. And normally what I do is try to get it kind of stuck up here when I'm drinking. That seems to be the normal technique. But if you're in the kitchen and you're about to serve this, and so I'll pour the chai, it'll sit for just a little bit while it's cooling down, maybe slightly if the people don't want it super hot. But before I bring it out, I'll take my fork and I will go, and you can see that whole thing moving on the top. I will scoop it out with my fork. Now this is a lifesaver for your chai drinkers. And look, now they don't need to worry about that. I find that, I take the first couple of sips and it takes a while, and after a couple of minutes you start getting that film appearing on the very top. Now, as I said before, this could be really painful if you just start drinking as it is right now, because there is this layer on the top. So I find the preferred technique is to just hold the cup steady, and you actually kind of blow. And I'm going to blow. And what it does is you blow the little milk cap onto the side. And there it is. It's kind of stuck on the side now, and it will never harm you again. So that's the trick. And once it's kind of stuck on the edge, see, it kind of stays there, and you're safe. So you can drink, and you don't really have to worry about that. And there you have it. Chai, a big cup. That's about 1 cup. In India, you'll normally get really small espresso-sized cups, but here, we do it up. So I hope you enjoyed this, and feel free to experiment with your chai and add in other ingredients. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope this really helps you make good chai.